Hello, and welcome to TP's Music Talk podcast. My name is Ryan Ford.
And I'm Nick Replinger.
And you can find us at our website, tpmusictalkpod.wordpress.com.
And you can also find us at anchor.fm/TP Music Talk Podcast and other major podcasting platforms by searching for TP's Music Talk Podcast.
You can find us on other social media as well, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and others by searching for TP Music Talk Podcast or for TP Music Talk Pod on Twitter. Just look for our logo.
And you can also email us at tpmusictalkpodcast@gmail.com.
We also have shared playlists on Apple Music and Spotify that you can check out by searching TP's Music Talk Podcast as well.
And don't forget to click the link in the description and leave us a voice message on Anchor. And feel free to leave us a message or a review anywhere you're listening. It really helps us out. And don't forget, donations are always appreciated. You can find a link to donate in the description of any of our episodes.
No part of our show can be reproduced without permission or written consent.
Hey Ryan, what are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, man, I'm hanging out with McKay. We're going to take a look at his latest engravings and talk about giveaways for I Engrave stuff.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, especially about those giveaways. And you know, I was on the internet the other day and I saw these ads for these other engraving services, and man, their prices are expensive.
Yeah, man. A lot of those other engraving companies will charge you up the wazoo for things. But I've noticed that McKay's company, they have items that are priced very reasonably, making it affordable, especially this year, to get a personalized and really impactful gift. Get your parents something that is heartfelt with your signature, or you can even do a letter in your own handwriting on something.
Oh yeah, that's right. And you can even send a scan of your handwriting on a letter, and they can engrave it onto a sign, a bottle, or whatever you could think of. The possibilities are endless with them.
Yeah, and right now, if you're in the checkout area, you can type in TP10 in all caps in the promo code box, and you'll get an extra 10% off. A gift from us. Go to iengravestuff.com today. All right. Hello and welcome back to TP's Music Talk. I'm Ryan Ford, and I also have with me here my co-host Nick Replinger.
How's it going?
And also the manager of the Vibe Music Studio, Joe Kassler. He was nice enough to come and help us out with the background recording and mixing stuff today, and maybe chime in occasionally when he wants. We also have a special guest today, artist JJ Braves, who we will introduce in just a moment. And before we get started, we wanted to let you know, Josh, that this phone or Zoom call is being recorded, and just make sure that's okay with you, and we have your consent and permission to proceed with this interview.
Yeah, no problem. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and
perfect.
clear.
Yep.
So quick introduction, Josh, or JJ Braves, who is with, I think it's Bolin Records, is an up-and-coming, is it Bolin?
Yeah, like the Bolin sisters.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I thought I had said it right, but yeah, I wasn't quite sure. He's an artist, an up-and-coming alternative indie artist, I would say, with what we would describe as kind of an 80s alternative influence to his music. At least his songs sonically seem to lean in that direction, in my opinion. And he has released 2 new singles so far, Jawbreaker and Stardust, and also has featured on a song by the artist Thay Lin called Pieces, and it sounds like there's much more to come. And the head of A&R and marketing at Bolin Records, I believe her name is Kai, reached out to us some weeks ago and left us a voice message on Anchor saying they would like to be on an episode of the show. And one thing led to another, and Nick and I now have the amazing opportunity and privilege today to interview Josh, or JJ Braves, and find out more about his background and upcoming releases, etc. So without further ado, let's get started. Josh or JJ Braves, which would you prefer for us to call you today?
Josh is fine. We're all friends here.
Alrighty, okay. Yeah, we're excited to have you on the show here, and we've been listening to your music, and we love what you got, and we're excited to have you on the show today. And well, I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So, I guess we could start off with maybe having you introduce yourself and a little bit about your musical background, and we'll let you take it from there.
Okay. Well, yeah, my name's Josh. I run a project called JJ Braves. I started JJ Braves about 6 years ago now, I believe. but I've been recording music since junior high. I think I had my first recording software that I pirated from somewhere. And
All
I just
right.
had a little computer microphone that I dropped into the sound hole of my guitar and realized, hey, I can just play one note at a time or one progression and then stack more notes on top of it, more notes on top of it. And I just got hooked on being able to hear ideas kind of grow and develop just as I was working on them. So yeah, I really wanted to do acting for a long time, and I kind of was on that track until high school, and then I joined a band, and everything kind of changed. I really liked working with small teams and feeling like I had more creative control doing bands as opposed to theater. And I was also doing a lot of choir at the time, which I really enjoyed. And it sort of steered me into the lane that eventually brought me where I am. You know, none of those bands worked out, of course. And so I ended up a handful of years after like the band that I felt like I really had a shot with. That was like kind of coming right out of high school, and things went south, and then a bunch of life happened. And a couple years later, I ended up getting a job at my church, which I no longer attend, as the lead sound engineer there. And I had access to a great studio that they had built at the church, a lot of pro gear, and like a lot of freedom to mess around with all the audio toys and the software and stuff that they had there. So I kind of tried to really hone my craft there. And I think my motto to myself was always, when music is good enough, then it'll go somewhere. I had really high qualities for production, or not qualities, high expectations of myself for production quality. And I just knew I really wasn't hitting it, and I felt like creatively I was still trying to find my own lane. Working in the church, I also did a lot of worship leading, so I was on the stage, and then I even had the opportunity to produce my first record for the church, which I helped write a lot of the songs or wrote some of them myself. But it became really challenging because I was always playing, for the most part, playing other people's music for the purpose of church services. And so there was, you know, kind of do's and don'ts as far as writing my own material for the church, you know. And I felt, and I explained this to, you know, like my boss and a couple people on occasion, that it was really creatively difficult for me to stay in that lane because there was stuff that I wanted to do that really didn't fit the function of the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried to take advantage of all of the resources I had and continue to sort of hone my own music, and it wasn't until I think near the end of my time there that I started JJ Braves. My skills as a producer had gone way up. I got really fluent in Logic Pro and Ableton Live, programming synthesizers and drums, and you know, it was good enough for me to be able to have the privilege of producing a record for them. Like, they put me on the project for like 11 weeks, and that was my whole a good chunk of my summer, honestly. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and so toward the end of my time there, I really knew that that wasn't going to be my future, was working in, you know, in churches and writing worship music. It was like a really close, it was really close to what I wanted to be doing full time, doing for a living. And you know, I had all these great people around me, access to these great resources, but it was just not quite there. It was almost my dream job, but you know, there was just a couple things that I felt were holding me back, kind of.
Sure. Yeah.
So I went back into the studio one day, and I can't remember if I'd planned this out beforehand. I think I kind of did. I knew what I needed to do. But I went into the studio on one of my off hours, and I just told myself that I was going to start a project where I wasn't going to let anybody else in on what I was making, at least for the beginning part of it. Because I had tried a lot of collabs leading up to this, and they always kind of ended up crashing and burning, like most of the bands that I started. I've started a lot of bands and let a lot of people down, unfortunately, because I really wanted to do something. I talked people into it, and they were on board for the project, and then I'd have like a mental breakdown or something, and you know, it
Takes
wouldn't.
trial and error sometimes, you know. So
Yeah, it really did. And I think I had the habit of getting myself stuck and then pulling other people in to try and help me get through what I was stuck with regarding either recording or writing. And then the project would kind of drift out of my hands. And at that point, I started to feel like, okay, either I try to take this whole project back from all of these people who've been really cool and supportive, or I just shut the whole thing down. And my natural instinct was always just shut it down. Like, this isn't going the direction you want to go. So
Yeah.
I went back into the studio and I told myself, I'm going to start something and I'm going to use everything that I learned to create my own material. I want to write it, I want to record it, mix it, and master it and release it on my own, just to prove to myself that I could. And
That's a big
it was
undertaking.
funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. though.
Yeah, it was really a neat moment because I managed to kind of clear my mind of expectations for what my, I'll use the word, real music sounded like or would sound like. Like, if I didn't have any kind of sound in my head already, and no function for the music other than to serve my creative purposes and discover what I could do on my own. So I came up with the name JJ Braves first, just in the same session. And it was just me messing around with different ideas of names, just not saying no to anything and letting my creativity just kind of evolve and go where it wanted to go. And so I ended up with the name JJ Braves. I pulled up a blank Ableton Live session and just started creating. I just started laying stuff down, programming sounds, and it kind of started to turn into this like disco tune thing. And I just went like, really, is this what I'm really about? Like, I'm not even that into like disco music and beats and stuff, but I rolled with it and I continued to work with it. And then eventually I pulled up some fat sounding synth bass preset on one of the programs I was using, and it just clicked. Like, everything just made sense all of a sudden. I said, okay, it's these big synth sounds, it's over the top,
Well, yeah, your music that we've listened to is definitely very like grandiose and very like not orchestral, but just it really pulls you in. It's big and all encompassing.
Yeah, it's synth heavy. I was listening on my car on the way to work the other day, and it's like, wow, that's very different listening from my phone or from my computer. But when I have a bigger sound system, it definitely encaptures everything around you, and it's very big. It's very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the greatest compliments I think you could give me. So thank you very, very much for that. It's been a long process. Like I said, it was a number of years ago that I came up with this initial concept, and I did it. I wrote, released the whole thing myself, and looking back at it, I can hardly listen to the song because it's just it was clearly for me my first shot at doing something, I don't know, on my own, and really trying to push the quality toward like, radio quality. I wanted to get there, but listening back to that song now is really difficult for me. I can't do it.
Yeah. And is this Stardust you're referring to, or is this another song?
No, this is another song. It's actually on my SoundCloud. I highly recommend nobody go listen to it.
Oh,
It's called
wow.
Sound the Alarm. But
Hey.
yeah, it's up. And from there, I did a couple more projects with that same attitude. And then I had like 2 originals and then a cover that I had done, which was a cover of I Want to Know What Love Is by Foreigner.
Oh, no way.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's
it's up
awesome.
on my SoundCloud too. That one I think is worth a listen because I really, really dug deep into like, making the song my own kind of thing. Lots of synths, and I was still kind of coming out of like my, hey, maybe I'll be an EDM producer phase, because I like had the software and the computers, and I realized, the people who make good EDM are obsessed with EDM, and that wasn't my lane. So as hard as I was trying to make like these bumping dance tunes, it just became apparent to me that I wasn't going to be super successful at that, because as much as I love electronic music, I've never like actually been to a festival, period, but I've never been to like, into experiencing electronic music and hearing it done at a high level. So yeah, that track is kind of fun if you want to check it out on
Yeah,
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, Foreigner, I Want to Know What Love Is cover, JJ
Yeah.
Braves, check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that one I'm proud of. That one I feel like I really pushed my limits. And I actually released a music video for that too, that I took the same philosophy, and I had my ex shoot me just in a room with one key light to like cast some heavy shadow, shot it on like an iPod Touch, and then threw everything into iMovie and downloaded every stock clip that I could from a website and kind of made this green screen overlay music video for it. So that's up on YouTube if you want to check that out. I'm actually pretty proud of that one, because it was like, I felt like I'd really pushed the limits between the first song that I did and doing this cover. Production wise, I felt like I did a really good job on that. But it wasn't, well, I think one of the most important things about that process and that project was that I have a tendency to write really slowly. Like, I put all of my energy into one track, and this was definitely the case for those tracks, to where I need a long time to recharge, you know, my creative energy after I make something. And I've kind of maintained that process over the last couple of years, but since I signed with Bolin, I've really pushed myself to speed up and have been working on a lot of additional songs since before Jawbreaker came out. Actually, I've been in the studio like nonstop since December until now.
Yeah, I've heard you're sitting on a lot, you know, got a lot of upcoming projects and things to talk about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really excited to get into it some more with you.
So is this going to be a full-length album that you're going to be releasing, or an EP, or?
I think that remains to be determined. I kind of getting a little off track here, but one thing I wanted to talk about and wanted to know if you guys can relate to is just burnout. Like, burnout on your
Yes.
passions, you know, like you hit that point and you're like, God, I love what I'm doing, but I have put so much into this. I just feel like I have nothing to give right now. And as hard as I'm trying, it's just stressing me out more and more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get that, and all that whole burnout. You know, I'm part of a band called Blix 10, and you know we released an EP album, and then we released that, you know, got decent reception, and then we're like, okay, we've done a few shows with this, and we want to do a full length album, and we got really close to finishing it, but then COVID hit, and just boom, right before we were gonna have our release concert for that full length album, everything got shut down. We weren't able to release it. And we have not been able to get the whole band together since then, since
Oh man.
2019, 2020.
Yeah. Well, and on the podcast side of things too, like, you know, with COVID and, you know, just life happens, you know, like I've moved recently, and, you know, my wife had a baby recently. So
Congratulations. Yeah.
yeah,
I think you
thanks so
told me about
much. Yeah. He's 4 months now, and he's amazing. He's a little bit of a handful sometimes, but he's the best baby ever. Yeah, so, but I can totally, I think both Nick and I can totally relate to you as far as burnout. And I mean, what we typically do is, you know, we just, I don't know, we're kind of perfectionists when it comes to the podcast thing, I feel like. We like to try our best to get it right. Obviously, we never get it exactly right, but, you know, we do our best to get it as perfect as we can. And if it takes a while to get something out, you know, we realize that can kind of be a bummer for our listeners sometimes, but we'd rather take extra time and get an episode out there that we are happy with, you know?
Just that we're more proud of, rather than just, you know, put something out just for the sake of putting something out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I bring it up because that actually happened to me this past week. Like, I had a vocal tracking session Monday evening, like late Monday night, and I had been trying to write verse lyrics for this new song that I'm really stoked about. I'm not sure yet if it'll be a single or if it'll go onto an album or an EP or what, but I just was tapped from creating all the music for this song, because that's how I do almost everything I create. Is I make all of the music first, and then I end up adding lyrics to it. Like, maybe I'll have like a chorus, like lyric and melody or something like that I build around, but a lot of the times I just open up a blank session and start creating based off of like a concept like for this song I'm talking about, it's for the bridge part, I really knew that I wanted to do a combination of The Pretender by Foo Fighters and
It's a
this
great one.
breakdown in Nero Forte by Slipknot.
Oh,
And
interesting.
Oh, cool.
yeah, and that was like a huge part of the puzzle too. I was really struggling to figure out the bridge, and now it's my favorite part. But I had a concept of, hey, what if I took these two ideas and mashed them together, and I just started recording and programming and stuff like that, and it ended up becoming a really, really neat section of the song. So I go into songs a lot of times kind of wanting a vibe, or maybe having a specific song that I kind of want to do my own version of, and I really never will pull up that song and hear how it actually goes. I'll kind of let my memory of the song and maybe the way it made me feel determine how I execute it in my own style. So,
Well, and that's actually one of the questions we had for you. I was going to ask you, how you go about writing your lyrics, and do you write the lyrics first or work on the instrumental side of things first? And it sounds like you definitely kind of start with maybe the instrumental side of things.
yeah, that's how I started my first song back at the church, which I mentioned. It was just a blank session, and I started creating music with no words or any concept in mind of what it was going to be about. And I think that that's really where I have the most fun at this point, is coming up with new ideas and just starting to create the music, because there's just something really magic that happens when you take a feeling or a moment and you manage to turn it into art. Like, you get
Yeah.
to make it real so that people can experience it, because I have so much fun recording and coming up with ideas. When it's shareable, there's just,
Well, and
I don't know.
I love how you mentioned that sometimes will go in trying to create a certain vibe, or you have an idea that sparks you, or like a feeling, and you don't always worry about like the specifics that you were thinking of beforehand, but you just try and reach that same place, maybe emotionally or something. I feel like that can be really powerful when creating music. And what music do you normally listen to, like in your spare time?
I really don't hang out and listen to music, to be honest. The radio in my car doesn't work anymore. So I'm usually just listening to YouTubers or ambient sound or whatever is on the overhead speakers at the grocery store. But I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of live in a world of music in my head, so I don't find too often that I'm like, oh, I really want to listen to this song, because I'm really preoccupied with, oh, I really want to hear my song realized. And that's kind of, I mean, it sounds terrible, but it's like I would rather listen to what I'm making than to what somebody else has made, because I think it's really easy for me to fall down that comparison rabbit hole, where
Yes.
I'm creating something original, but I know that somebody's doing it better. So I know that my influences and my standards are really high. Like, for recording, like, I really love the way Third Eye Blind puts their records together, but I haven't listened to them in years.
Incredible
And same
band.
kind of incredible bands, great writers. Haven't I watched some of their performances on like talk shows and stuff, and it was kind of disappointing to see that they didn't pull it off so well. But it
Oh,
just,
really?
I, yeah, I mean, and I'm like, it just, I think that they bought their own or built their own studio after the success of their first record. So to me, it just kind of seems like they're a band that just really thrives in the studio. They're great at recording. Stephen Jenkins is an amazing songwriter. And as a band, they're just really tight. But then, and I feel like I can relate to this. And I hope, this isn't like offensive to them if they would ever hear this or anything.
Oh, well, yeah,
That'd be awesome if they listened, but yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, man.
Third Eye Blind,
Yeah.
please look us up.
Yes, yes. I really felt that most of my time, as far as my music, I'll use the word very loosely, career, has been in the studio. I did it kind of backwards from, I think, a lot of the people I know, where they cut their teeth on live performance, but I really spent years and years and years just doing home recordings without getting the opportunity to take a lot of that music out into the world. So I don't know. I felt like that thought struck me later, that I can relate to the idea of feeling like a studio band instead of a live band. And again, I hope that this doesn't reach their ears, because that seems really offensive.
Well, they seem like
But I
pretty
do
down
want
to
them to
earth.
listen to the podcast, though. I hope.
Yeah, they seem like pretty down to earth people. Hopefully they would, they'd be just fine. They
Well,
wouldn't take it
sure.
offensively.
Every artist has their strengths and their weaknesses, but
Yeah.
since you say you don't listen to a lot of other music other than your own right now, where do you draw influences to write your music that you're working on now?
I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it's like my memory of a song is what will drive it. Like I grew up I was born in 87, so I grew up in the 90s, but it was like after, Van Halen and Queen and Def Leppard had already kind of had their heyday, like the times when they sort of ruled the world with that style of music. So I grew up looking back on those through CDs my dad owned, or the most influential media that I probably consumed as a kid that had an impact on me now was Queen live at Wembley Stadium in 1986.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I watched that DVD so many times, and that sense of, you mentioned earlier, things sounding grandiose. I think that's really largely where it came from, was that DVD, and then that music got me into other bands from that era. I wouldn't say that I became a really huge fan, but it was locked in my subconscious. So the answer to your question is like, it's my memories of these songs and the memories of the way that these songs made me feel, or these performances made me feel, that I think I draw from. So it's never really like a lot of times in my view, it's like, oh, I kind of just want to rip these guys off a little bit and just steal that idea and maybe tweak it a little and maybe make it my own. And then
Sure.
by the time I get done with the song, it really is its own thing. It's influenced by my subconscious, I guess. And and that's happened more recently too, over the course of the last couple of years, because I've hung out with a lot of people who I just feel have really good taste in music. So they've turned me on to groups like Parcels and Jungle.
I haven't heard of Parcels. I think I've heard of Jungle, but definitely
Bruh.
wouldn't be an expert in any of that.
Parcels made me want to quit music. I just was like, these guys are just too good. They're too good. You got to look them up.
Yeah, I'll add 'em. Parcels.
Yeah. And somebody made a Jamiroquai reference to my music too. I'm not sure if that was you or it was another.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been me, but I definitely saw, and it's funny that you mentioned Foreigner earlier, and maybe we kind of talked about this before, when we talked on the phone in the past, but I definitely thought, when I first listened to your music, that you sounded similar to like Foreigner or Journey, some of those like iconic kind of 80s bands, or even like, so when you say that you kind of grew up on that music and that's what you use to maybe help create your own through your memories of it, that makes a lot of sense. I think you pull it off. So
Thank you. I think another. I'm not sure if I mentioned them earlier because I'm a little scatterbrained, but Mogwai is and was a huge influence for me. And again, I haven't listened to anything that they've released in a couple years, but their idea of layers on layers on layers of sound that all work together in harmony to create a single piece of music where all of the instruments are working together to produce a sound that's very in sync, even though it's loud. It's like controlled chaos kind of with them. And I went to one Mogwai concert. I don't go to concerts a lot, but I went to one and it was so loud that I started to hallucinate, like actually go crazy. And that was super cool because I left there just feeling like, wow, music can really,
it can take you places.
Yeah.
it could take you places, and it can like I didn't expect to have that experience, but it also made me just go like, dude, I want to play that loud. I want to be like, I want to be up there just making all kinds of noise, but having it all work in concert together. So, going back to the writing process, I think that's one of the reasons why I have so much fun making the music before I get to the lyrics, because I'm working on stacking instruments together to create new sounds. Like, the way I see it is when you put like a guitar line and then a synth line, and they're playing the same thing, or maybe they're harmonizing with each other, you don't end up with just a guitar and a synth. You end up with a whole new sound that's a
Yes.
combination of the two things. You know what I mean? You're creating almost like a new instrument, because the textures and the way that they interact with each other are creating, what's become my sound. It's big guitars with synths layered in with it. And the guitar thing was something that I really didn't have a handle on until a couple years ago, when I realized, what was it? There's a band called Disperse. They're a Greek band, I believe, and they released this record called Forward. And it's kind of like a prog metal sort of thing.
I'm learning so much today. I haven't heard of these bands, but I'm
Yeah.
looking them all up right now.
Bro, Disperse. Yeah, listen to Forward. The song that got me hooked on them was called Bubbles. I think it's the third song on the album.
I'm looking
And
at
it
it
just
right
turned
now.
up on a,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, dude, like this whole that whole project, I listened to it and I got so into it, and I remembered and I realized I was so about electric guitars, like in high school and coming out of high school. I loved the sound, and up to that point, because as I mentioned about being really into electronic music and learning how to program and use synths and stuff,
Yeah.
I really didn't do a lot of guitar work. And a large part of that was because in working for the church, I was primarily a keyboard player there, which I never
Oh,
was really a huge fan of, but it is my first instrument. And so I mostly worked with synths and piano sounds, combined with synths.
that's a good
But
start, though. I mean, I feel like people who, start by, learning keyboard or piano, I mean,
yeah.
other instruments seem to come very naturally to them.
Yeah, I mean, I I, I feel like that. I learned piano and took lessons up to, through the beginning of middle school or something, and then I was just like, dude, I want to write songs. Like, I don't need to be practicing my scales and stuff. I know what I want to do when I sit at the piano, and it's definitely not go through my lesson plan. It's like I'd rather be spending that time creating new music.
Yeah.
But and so in that environment and working, with the church, and then the whole EDM thing, I had really not messed around with guitars or realized how much I loved the sound of big distorted guitars, because a lot of the guitar work in, CCM, which is contemporary Christian music, is the guitars are really washed out with a lot of reverb. The music is very ethereal, meant to evoke a sense of the spiritual, and
Sure. Yeah.
kind of bring something up deep inside you. But there's not a lot of room for like loud, like 7 string or drop D, like breakdowns or anything like
Yeah.
that. Like
Right.
there's a scene for that. There's like the Christian metal scene. It's there, but it doesn't.
It's not as big. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely did not belong at the Sunday morning services for the church I worked at.
Or probably
It
most
just,
churches, honestly, but yeah.
yeah, and there's like a couple, big CCM bands that kind of rule the world, or at least last time I checked, which wasn't recent. But it's a very specific, very dialed sound. So, I started to move away from that while I was, getting more producing chops, and then I listened to that Disperse record, and something just I remembered, and I felt like I needed to go back musically to where I left off, really trying to push my career as a singer and as a musician and content creator. And that for me kind of was when I was about 17 or 18. I got kind of derailed for a number of years.
So it kind of kicked you
And
back into gear and
yeah,
inspired you.
it brought me closer to my true influences. And so I recorded a song called Space Grenade, which got taken down from streaming services, but that's also now up on my SoundCloud. And then I did another release called Sports and another release called Mavericks. And those all began to show the signs of that really heavy guitar influence, which is finding its way into the material I'm working on now. In
Yeah.
fact, my partner Joey, she lives out in Koreatown, and she was commenting on how my music is just getting a lot heavier, like chunkier, meatier, beefier, and I'm really enjoying the process, because I feel like it's very cathartic for me after not, being able to express like my metalcore influences from high school, or like my emo core days, or eyeliner and all that.
Well, and if you're used
And
to layering on, layering your songs and your sonic scapes, I feel like that's the type of music to do it with. You know, you can create some very heavy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I try to keep it fun and really like it sounds kind of samey to me until I pull up the synth patches and I start layering them, and then suddenly my sound appears. It's just, I guess I've got a sort of a method at this point. So a lot of times my songs start with like a synth lead or a synth pad or something like that, and I build from there. But it's not until you have the guitars and the synths together, and then the finishing touch is putting my vocals on it, which I feel ties everything together, kind of.
Kind of sounds like a
Yeah.
Nine Inch Nails approach. I like it. I think that's really
Oh,
cool.
is that what Nine Inch Nails does?
Well, I know that he uses, Trent Reznor uses a lot of synths and then usually tries to layer it with other sounds, like even very organic sounds, like the squeaking of a straw when you're, you know,
Yeah, very
pulling-
industrial type sounds.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it just sounds kind of similar to what you're describing. And he's an amazing artist. And, you know, I find that I'm doing that constantly with you is just kind of, you know, you say like, oh, I create music like this, or, you know, I listen to your music and I'm just reminded of all these big time artists and bands. And it's really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to take this sound big time. It's I certainly have committed myself to it, especially since signing with Bolin. I just threw all my eggs in one basket and said, "Here we go."
Yeah.
Um,
And so like,
but
sorry, do you feel like your creative processes are kind of similar to other musicians and artists, or is there anything kind of unique that you think you do that maybe no one else does?
I don't know. I mean, people's processes are so varied. I feel like I usually run into people who write their lyrics first and then write the music to match, but that's not exclusively the case. You know, I played in a band called Gold Shimmer. I think I left that band last year, maybe a little less than a year ago. I really don't remember. But I was helping. Yeah, it's two words, Gold Shimmer. The visionary behind the project, his name is JD, and I worked with him, you know, with the band for about a year, just doing producing, co-writing some stuff. He was really the brains behind the project, and his talent is just insane. Like the amount of music that he could crank out over the course of an afternoon was absurd. I just was mind boggled,
driven,
especially
huh?
since I work slow. He's just got so much creative energy. So working with him, you know, his approach is he would kind of come up with beats and stuff first, or, you know, sort of a chorus section or something, but he would simultaneously write his lyrics and his music. And that always really impressed me because it just showed me how much energy he had inside of him. And, you know, it was really, really cool to make music with him. And I ultimately parted ways with the band because I really wanted to focus on what I was doing. I tend to give myself in 100% when I join something or tell somebody I'm going to do something. I go all the way in and I don't leave a lot of room for myself. And I realized I was getting to that point where like I was experiencing this burnout, and I knew the only answer to it was to turn my attention toward what I was going to create. So that was a really pivotal moment. But yeah, working with him was fantastic. It was really cool to just watch him fly through, you know, Logic Pro sessions, and then eventually he learned Ableton and was just making incredible music. But you know, my friend group is small. The people that I hang out with are mostly musicians, and you know, so, and I just feel like everybody just kind of does what works for themselves. And like I was saying earlier, like that process where you take something out of your head and manifest your music is just magic, and there's no right way to do that. It's really just
You gotta
whatever's in your
find your niche, so to speak.
yeah, you got to find your method. You have to yeah, and then you know, ultimately through that you need to find your own sound, your own vision for what you're trying to create. And I think that DIY is really the name of the game, and has been for a while now, especially during COVID. Oh my God, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
everybody had to do DIY, you know. It was like there was really no other option, because you couldn't go out to studios or go out to shows or network or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was one of like the upsides of COVID, and I really tried to take advantage of that too, which wasn't a huge change for me because I was already in the studio by myself or with one or two other people every day. So it didn't really slow my progress that much. But
Yeah, that was one of my questions. We were going to ask you, you know, how you and your team were affected by it, and hate to bring up COVID at all because you know it's just one of those words, those trigger words. But
Kind of taboo sometimes.
yeah, but you know, it sounds like you did okay, and you got through it fairly unscathed.
yeah, I did get sick once. I got COVID once. It was not fun for the first 2 days, and then the rest of it was kind of just like getting over a bad cold. And I'm thankful that it wasn't worse. It was kind of the same as the symptoms I got when I got like my second shot. I had fevers for like 2 days, and then wasn't
Yeah,
too bad after that.
same.
Did either of you guys catch it?
Yeah, I got COVID earlier this year, although I had already been vaccinated when I got COVID. So to me, my
Yeah.
whole experience, it was like very mild cold. I honestly think I've had flus and colds that much worse than COVID in my personal
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, and
Well, that's good. Yeah.
I was one of the lucky ones that I mean I'm sure I got it at some point, but I think that I was asymptomatic through it and it didn't really. But I've heard horror stories and I have friends that it really they took a beating, you know, or they still can't taste or smell, and it's just crazy how many weird symptoms and side effects there are to that illness. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like out in the city, people were really feeling it because there's just a lot more people there. But I know people have lost, people to COVID, and fortunately, I haven't had anybody that's been it hasn't had too much of effect on their health. But yeah, it's a big deal, and it was definitely worth taking seriously. It still is. But I kind of feel like the silver lining for artists anyways, it really forces everyone to make stuff on their own, and even on a broader scale, like aside from artists and musicians, I feel like it just really helped a lot of people to look at their lives and what they were doing and say, is this really what I want from my life? Like, am I friends with the people that I want to be friends with? Am I pursuing the career that I want to? Is there something inside me that I just haven't addressed? Because my attitude toward COVID was like, I could die from this. I have no idea. Like,
right.
people close to me could die, and it just was it for me. It just reinforced that I was doing the right thing. But I know a handful of friends that I do have that I think really that opportunity came to them where it was a good chance to just turn their life in a different direction and go pursue what they're really passionate about. So I think that that's one upside of what COVID has been and continues to be.
Yeah, that's
But
a
yeah,
really
I think
positive aspect to bring up. Like most people when they talk about COVID, it's all negative. But you bring up a great point in that it was kind of a make or break moment, and they either chose to pursue what they were doing even harder, or they found their real passion. So,
yeah. I have a friend who broke off his engagement once COVID hit. He just realized he didn't want to be with this person. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy, but yeah, that's a perfect example of what I was talking about.
absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of coming out of left field here. This is taking it off the rails, maybe. But one of the
I've
questions.
been in left field this whole time, so it's all good.
No, you're good, man. And so one of the questions that I've been wanting to ask is, is there a particular artist that you look up to or admire? I know you've talked about a few already, but is there do you have a favorite artist or?
I no.
Yeah,
I
It's
don't.
a
I mean,
tough
if I had to say anything, it'd probably be Queen.
Love it.
But like I said, I don't even really listen to them that much anymore. But I'm sitting at my desktop and I have this amazing black and white photo of them playing, which I see every time I boot up my computer. And it just reminds me that being theatrical, being over the top, especially vocally, not being afraid to go to certain places where it's like out of genre or maybe even out of style. I feel like something I learned from Michael Jackson is that you can sell. If you can sell what you're singing, then it works. And I think that just comes from really talented vocalists. You can jump around styles. You can, write about different things, and I think Freddie Mercury does the same thing as Michael does, where whatever he sings, he sells it, and because he's selling it, the song works, even if it's something different
little
than what
unique.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something different than what you're known for releasing, because they just released all kinds of music over the years, and
Those are
yeah,
perfect
so
examples. Yeah, I would say.
yeah. So I think that, yeah, I'd say Queen. That was probably the first band that I would have told people was my favorite. Third Eye Blind, I think, still remains like my top 3 or top 5, even though I haven't listened to them in years. I haven't kept up with their records or anything, but the influence that they had on me, I found like a CD binder on the ground when I was in the 7th grade, and it had all these CDs in it, and the Third Eye Blind self-titled was in there, and I listened to that CD so many times. There were so many hits on there. That also makes me think of Matchbox 20. They wrote that record. What was the name of that record? It had like all of these radio hits on it. There was like 5 singles that went to radio on that record.
Like Bent and I'm trying to think of others. Sorry, I was laughing because we almost put a Matchbox 20 song on the playlist that we made, and I guess
Oh, is that right?
maybe I should plug that playlist really quick. We just made a playlist
Yeah.
called Alternative Spaces featuring JJ Braves, and we tried to find songs that complemented his and just kind of try to create a vibe. It definitely leaned in the 80s alternative genre direction. And anyway, if you like alternative music, go check it out, and definitely check out JJ Brave's songs on there, Stardust, Pieces, and Jawbreaker.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the playlist ad, by the way. I really love seeing all these other artists, because it can be really hard for me to hear my music from the outside and I find myself wondering all the time, what do people think I sound like? Because, I draw all these influences and they go into what I make, and then I want to be like, oh, I'm really inspired by Queen, but then I worry that you put the song on and it's like, well, this doesn't sound anything like Queen. And then I'm thinking, well, it was more about the spirit behind it, or this one particular guitar riff or something like that. But yeah, I'm looking at that Matchbox 20 record right now. Actually, there were 5. This was in 96 it released. Yourself or Someone Like You.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that record is just full of really influential songs too. I remember being very, very into what they were making. I remember Goo Goo Dolls was on the radio kind of around that same time, and they had those couple songs that really resonated with me. One artist I definitely have to bring up is Lauryn Hill. I bought, I think it was maybe the first CD I ever bought was Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I had no idea who she was or what it was going to be like, but I bought that record, and I still love making beats. And some of the stuff I'm working on right now is really like, it starts with a beat or something maybe a little more like hip hop or groove oriented, but then it kind of breaks into more of my like rock synth sound at some point. But the lyrics on that record, the musicality, the vocal performances, oh my God. Like,
Oh yeah, classic record.
just unbelievable talent and purity of vision, I felt like. So yeah, I needed to bring up that record for sure.
Yeah. Reminds me of like, I don't know, I think of that in the same vein as like when I think of Illmatic by Nas. Like, it's just one of those records that's timeless and just it pushed so many things, I don't know if you're familiar with Nas and like hip hop and stuff, but Illmatic
I'm really
is
not.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Illmatic is one of those like just really classic hip hop records. I feel like, if you're going to try and get into hip hop, that's one that you want to check out, because it's got like those compound rhyme schemes and amazing beats, and it just tries new things for the time, Anyway,
Okay.
sorry, I don't want to get off the beaten path here.
No, dude, that's where I like to live, bro. Go where you didn't expect. I got that record pulled up right now. I will actually go and listen to this. 98% people like this album. I guess you're not lying.
It's a good one, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong if you are interested in hip hop there. But anyway, I did want to also ask you if I could just break down some of your lyrics here really quick off of Stardust, because I thought they were so interesting. It's just that first, it says, I was a ghost, moving quiet as a shadow. I was lost. but I had no need to be found. I danced alone to the sound of darkness singing. I'm sorry if I get any of this wrong.
Oh, you got it.
And after, a trillion years or so, I felt a step beat to rhythm, some kind of secret code shaking my jelly bones. Now I'm human. Like,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
just was so cool.
The lyric is, I felt after a trillion years or so, I felt a steady dual rhythm, and that was kind of my like overly poetic way of saying I felt a heartbeat, like the bump bump, bump bump.
Oh, okay.
Got
And
it. Rhythm.
yeah, and then like the jellied bones thing is like literally being a fetus and like your bones are forming, and so I really appreciate the insight that you have in that song because it was Jawbreaker. I really knew that I needed to come out swinging and just get something that was really going to work, kind of just catch people's ears right off the bat. But Stardust was a great opportunity for me to get deeper, I think, and explore a topic that I was hoping people would, relate to and get them to think a little bit. Because one thing that I'm very aware of as I'm creating music is that I don't ever want to get put in that box of being one note, like, oh, he's the guy that writes like these rock party songs, or I have a lot of different styles and influences in me that I want to get out both musically and lyrically. So
You don't want to.
it
You
kind
don't
of
want to be stereotyped into one specific genre, like
exactly.
how everyone associates
Yeah.
maybe like Ed Sheeran with just soft, acoustic
Kinda
guitar
folksy
ballads.
pop
Yeah.
or
yeah, when I know that Ed Sheeran is so, like has co-written and played like so much more than that. But
Yeah,
Yes.
but when everyone thinks of Ed Sheeran, that's where they go to automatically.
right,
or
right,
Tom
yeah.
Cruise and doing action movies. I mean, it doesn't just have to be music. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
people get kind of stuck in a
Dude,
yeah.
Tom Cruise is so crazy, man. I was thinking of yesterday, just like I haven't seen Maverick yet. Have you guys seen it?
I have. It really blew me away. I took my dad
it
for his
good?
birthday because Top Gun was his favorite movie forever, and
Oh, that's
it
cool.
blew his expectations too. Like it was really really well done. And I think the first Top Gun movie was one that was meant for that generation back in 1986, but this one it captures the audience of 1986 and today's audience as well. I think it does well with nostalgia and bringing forth the present as well.
I'm
That's really
excited.
cool. I feel like that's kind of one of my goals with my music is to take what I feel like the great ones have done before and put my own spin on it, and it somehow manages to be authentic. So I've heard great things about that movie. And Tom Cruise, I was just thinking of that scene in the one in Mission Impossible where he's on the side of the plane.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Getting
I'm
dragged
like,
along.
bro, like a little fleck of like dirt or a little tiny anything could have flown into that guy's eye or like hit him in the forehead. He would have been done, bro. Like
Yeah.
he's literally holding on to the side of a plane. That's nuts. But the thing I appreciate about him, and I'm getting way off track,
You're
is that he
good.
got to a point where he was like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I will pay for it myself if I have to. And this time around, I want to fly fighter jets.
He
you
got
know,
the
he's like,
licenses. Yeah.
yeah, like he does what he wants, and whatever his personality, beliefs, whatever. I don't know anything about that other than that they're somewhat controversial, I guess, or were in the past. I don't know, but I really admire the fact that he's like, I really want to do this thing that sounds super super fun to me. So he pays for it and he makes a movie out of it and he goes and does it. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the same. It's kind of a DIY thing. Like you're not taking direction from a big studio or anybody telling you what you can or can't do. He's like, no, this is my show. Like if I want to fly a fighter jet, I'm gonna fly a fighter jet. Like let's go
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Well, and on the subject of like DIY stuff, it just something I was thinking about when you were talking about it earlier. Like people like Tom Cruise or it sounds like yourself put their all into what they do, and but you also I feel like you also have to take time away for yourself. Like if you can't take care of yourself first and really build yourself up before going and doing those things, you can get that burnout and I struggle with that myself. I feel like DIYers, that's kind of their it's their crutch as well as their strength.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you determine your own schedule, really the deadlines that you set and the pressure that you feel to produce your own project. it's all self-imposed, nobody's making you do it. And I think it can be really important as a creator to recognize that when you are starting to hit the wall and go, you know what, like I'm feeling stressed out because I'm the one who said the way this was going to go. I said I was going to put this out by this date, or I, told people I was going to accomplish this and this and this and this, but really nobody's expecting me to follow through with those things. They're just like, all right, Josh, like, yeah, go for it, dude. Sounds cool. And, then you get into the process, and just like this last week for me, I just hit the wall and I had to, text a handful of people. I had to text my engineer and the guy who mixes and masters my stuff, hey dude, I'm really sorry to cancel last minute. My head's in a bad space. And everybody's always just like, dude, that's totally cool, man. Let's not do this until you're ready, until you feel like you're confident in it, that it's everything that you want it to be and nothing it's not, rather than try to get it out on a date that I ultimately am responsible for trying to keep. But yeah, like DIY creators, I mean, we push ourselves because we're passionate about what we do, right? Like
we hold ourselves to very high standards, and the funny thing is it's like no one else holds themselves to as high standards as we do.
You're your own worst critic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And criticism is super necessary, honestly. Like I don't know how much the label sends me all the really cool stuff and the positive reviews and stuff. I'm not sure if they're like just not sending me bad stuff because they don't want to hurt my feelings or whatever. But, it's been really cool to hear that people, that it's working, that the hard work is paying off, and that I kind of forgot where I was going.
Well, no, I mean, I agree. And I do also think like, I wish more people would give us their honest opinion on things sometimes when it comes to like the podcast and stuff. Like I think constructive criticism is so important. Like you need, and not just your own criticism, but you need opinions from other people, because that's the only way you can improve. So
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes that criticism can come from yourself by looking at something somebody else is doing. Like, again, I'm looking at this photo of Queen right now and being like, okay, these guys are in another league from me. They're doing things way harder and way better than I've done. So like, that's all the criticism I need to know that I can take this further. I can make it better. And I won't stop. I won't stop, period. But I won't really start feeling, you're part of the A-list until you're creating stuff that's on that or of that caliber. It's like setting yourself personal competition goals. I think I do a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's just cool that you pull inspiration from, I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't even know Queen these days. I mean, they might know like Bohemian Rhapsody,
right.
Or, but they don't.
That people will know the classics, but maybe not some of the lesser well-known stuff.
Yeah. It's just cool that you draw inspiration from them. And sorry, I did want to, I feel like I'm always taking it to a completely different place, but
please do, please, let's go.
Another question I had is, so how did your relationship with Bolin Records begin? And, is there any background that you can give us about the record label? Any like shout outs or I'm just kind of curious about them.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell a really long story, but I'm going to try to not. I met Caleb through a friend. Caleb is the head of Bolin Records.
Oh, okay.
I met him through a friend who kind of gave me a shot at getting into the music industry because I was really down and out. I had just gotten divorced and I really lost myself for a while, and to the point where
sorry to hear that.
really didn't know how to. Yeah, I mean, it was for the best. I was not healthy, mentally healthy, and I can elaborate more on that later, but
Sure.
My friend knew that I was trying to get back on my feet, and I had started like opening my laptop and like programming little things, and then side note, I ended up joining a songwriters group in LA, which really helped me remember like, oh, I've actually created some really good music and I think I could do that again.
Oh,
but
that's cool.
My friend, his name was Johnny, and he hooked me up with Caleb, who is the manager for a group called He Is We.
Oh, no way. I love that band. Yeah. I mean, I've listened to them before.
Yeah, He Is We is really the project. Her name is Rachel Taylor, it's really her project, her songs. And she's been doing this project since she was like 16 or something like that. And she got
Wow.
really recognized, I think, when she was really young,
Early
and
start.
did a
Yeah.
collaboration with Owl City that has like millions of plays on
Oh, wow.
Spotify.
I think that's the one I've
Yeah.
heard. Yeah.
Is it okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's got a lot of numbers on it. But Johnny hooked me up with Caleb, and Caleb asked if I was interested in tour managing a 2-week tour for He Is We, and I just said yes. I was like, you know what, anything to get me into the venues, get me around music, just help me remember who I am and why I love being behind the scenes when it comes to being in venues. I love the hustle and the energy. I don't really go to shows that much, but I love being there when I have a job to do, whether it's mixing audio or in this case, tour managing. So we did this 2-week tour, which is a whole own story to itself with many, many interesting things to talk about. But by the end of that tour, we all got home relatively unscathed. Rachel and I both got the flu after, just because our immune systems were just like
That can be
maxed
rough.
out, just trying to survive this tour.
Right.
Um,
Rough on your
but
body.
yeah, rough on the body and the mind and the emotions and everything. It was quite an experience. But the difficulty of the experience actually ended up working out in my benefit, because I developed a really good relationship with Caleb, and he really appreciated the work that I did, and that was so affirming, just to be like, man, I was given a shot and I did a really good job at it. It gets my foot in the door. I'm working with music professionals now, and this is definitely a step in the right direction for me.
Yeah.
And a long time went by and we didn't talk. And then I think I played a little acoustic, like YouTube TV spot with her when she came to LA. And then I went to Ohio last year, and I actually did all the tracking for instruments on her latest album, which was a huge honor and really cool to get flown out and play all the instruments. There was some collaboration and a little bit of instrument switching when it came to some of the percussion and things like that, and like we would record drum samples and then program them in, but I did all the guitar work, the keyboard parts.
Wow.
I essentially took arrangements that Rachel had from songs that she had recorded over the last 15 years or so that she had demos of,
Yeah.
and she explained what she wanted those songs to be like, and I had so much fun helping her create that. So that was another point where I got to kind of interface with Caleb. And then fast forward to this past summer, and I had the opportunity. My dad just had been kind of watching my journey. I have a lot to say about like my own mental health and just about mental health in general. I'm bipolar, and
yeah.
had a really hard time managing that for a long time. It's been a number of years now in the process of kind of getting stable. But I bring that up because I really made an effort to start to have a healthier lifestyle, to really focus on managing my bipolar to the point where I wasn't, an alcoholic anymore, and I wasn't going out and partying and doing like spending tons of money and stuff. So my dad
Yeah.
really was like, you know what, I think you've come a long way. You are much more responsible than you used to be, and I want to invest in you taking this to the next step. And I was kind of like, wow, like that came out of nowhere, but that's awesome.
It's a good dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like props to my dad. He's been, I mean,
Big
he's
supporter.
been behind, dude, huge support. I would not be where I am without him, like on a lot of different levels. But
That's so
he
cool.
told me he was willing to make an investment in me pursuing my music career. And so I called a couple friends that were in the industry, Johnny being one of them, the guy who connected me with Caleb. And I said, hey, if you had this opportunity and had the funds, what would you do? And I called Caleb and asked him the same thing. We had a 2-hour long conversation. And by the end of it, he goes, oh, do you know I started a record label? I was like, no, dude, congrats. That's super cool. Like, right on.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, we've heard your music, and maybe you'd be interested in working with us. And I was like, let me think about it, but yes. Like I'm gonna sleep on it, think about it for a bit, try to make sure I'm not just like
Jumping into
super
it.
excited at the first opportunity that comes along. But it worked out, and it continues to work out because of the relationship that Caleb and I had built was very strong. He trusted me, with the responsibility of taking care of his artists, and had just a lot of respect for me, which I appreciated. And the fact that he then was willing to take it to the next level and say, well, hey, why don't we focus on your music, really blew me away. I wasn't calling him to ask for that or aware of any of that. I just knew he's a seasoned, he's a veteran of the music industry. He's managed and tour managed and done all kinds of stuff for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So that was how it happened. Honestly, it was kind of a surprise at the end of a phone call, and over the course of the next, I think 4 months or so, we kind of just spitballed ideas, and I think I immediately started writing music, and I actually wrote Stardust first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I tracked it slightly differently than the way that I usually track stuff. I mean, a little bit of like behind the scenes. I usually double everything that I record, especially when it comes to guitars. Like I'll record it and then put it in the left ear and then record it again as close to exactly the same as I did and put it in the right ear, and that gives you this nice wide stereo guitar sound with this really clean path down the middle of the like the panning to put the vocals and the kick drum and the snare and stuff like that. But
yeah. Interesting.
for
I like
Stardust, I didn't really do that. I just it was just sort of a plug and play thing. That song came together really fast. And so I was really relieved to hear that people felt the production quality was really good on that one, because I did do something that I don't normally do, because it kind of feels like cutting corners to me. I feel like I know, quote, the right way for me to do stuff is to double track things and stack vocals so that they sound big and wide. And so, yeah, and then I followed my standard process for Jawbreaker, which is to double track and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of came out in opposite order. They just liked Jawbreaker better. They liked where it was going. It was much more like hard out of the gate. And it's been really, really cool what Bolin has been able to do with these tracks. It introduced me to you guys. I'm getting to do some of my first podcasts and interviews that I've ever done, despite making music since I was, 13. And it's getting to talk about like my music in particular, which is so cool.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling.
So cool. Yeah, and I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate this interview. It's just so cool and so fun to get to like have a voice and be heard, and it motivates me to continue to create. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you for being on the show. Like, seriously, sincerely, we love this kind of stuff, and I feel like I don't know, to hear. Well, I guess as far as Bolin Records, we've just been blown away by how nice everyone is, including yourself. Like, Kai has been amazing to work with and communicate with, and it's just been such a good experience, and I feel like we really lucked out with you guys. So
I appreciate that. Kai is a machine. Like she's such a hard worker, and is also very personable. We'll just call or text just to check in and see how things are going. She's always like, she's like cold calling people and just hitting people up through whatever information she can find, sending my songs out. And with Jawbreaker, it was so cool because I came out of the gate with that one, and we just were all, I didn't have like a meter to go off of, but they told me, what, this doesn't usually happen, that we get this many placements. Like, that song is in 1,500 Kroger grocery stores. It made it onto like 7,000 Live Nation playlists. It's in Krispy Kreme.
that's so cool, man.
It's so cool. Yeah. So the work that I've been able to do with them, it's taking everything that I've been doing and really pushing me to take it to the next level. And not, I told people when this first started happening, I said, this is my shot and I'm going to shoot it and I'm not going to miss. Like, it's not,
go big or go
I'm
home.
not going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just very confidently said, I am not going to mess this up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this right. And this is what I'm going to do for my career for the rest of my life. So yeah, that's my backstory with Bolin, and kind of the way things have gone since then to now. And I'm continuing to create content, and it's a little flexible right now as to whether I'll be releasing singles or albums or an EP. But I'm kind of focused right now actually on getting my band together. Like Olin is, they're based out of Atlanta, and I did go visit them to sign the contract, which was really cool to get to like see Kai, meet her face to face, and really sit with them. And it just felt really real in that moment, flying out there. And
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
yeah, it was a moment that I felt like I'd been waiting for a long time, and it wasn't grandiose. It wasn't kind of some huge thing. We met at a Chili's, and they brought some copies of the contract and took some photos of me signing it, and it was like the cool thing about the label, or one of the cool things about the label, is it is full of really positive energy. People who really care. I know Caleb doesn't really want to mess around with too many people that he doesn't know personally, or doesn't know that they have a good track record. Like, very picky about the kind of people that he wants to support and work with. So
Once
I
have a good reputation.
yeah, so I recognize the same qualities in them, and I appreciate them so much for being so personable and for trying to check in every week and say, hey, what are you working on? What's your game plan? But so I've got them in Atlanta, and then I have my network that I built here in LA with some studios, a lot of great musicians, and then a handful of performances. When I was playing with Gold Shimmer, just to sort of, it was nice to brush up on my stage skills and just be on stage and performing and stuff again. But I think I've only performed my stuff like once or twice in the last 3 years. It's just been all studio work.
Well,
But I've got this team of guys. What's that?
Oh, sorry. I just was saying, with the climate, with COVID and everything, I'm sure that it was kind of difficult to get out there live. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, when COVID hit, I just kept making sure my contacts were very minimal. It was like, I knew a studio owner, and so I had the opportunity to be involved in the beginning of that studio, which is great because now I have this connection with him and with the studio that, allows me to get drums recorded and things that I can't do at my warehouse, which is where I do all my pre-production, which is where I'm actually sitting right now.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm putting my band together, I guess, is the long and short of it. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the logical next step for me. I've been writing and tracking and recording for like 7 months now, just in this warehouse. And I need guys here that I can see face to face that support the project, but that are also invested in actually playing instruments in the band. And I think that I need that at this point to help prevent some of the burnout we were talking about, and to just give me like a fresh perspective on it and make it feel a little more real.
Oh yeah.
Between rehearsing it and just hearing it, come out of hearing the music that you made, but in a live setting, it's an incredible feeling. But then to actually take it out to a venue and see people engaging with the music, and that's something that I am dying to do, with what I've made over the last couple years. And it feels appropriate right now to be just kind of sitting on all this material, but starting to focus on what's going to be the boots on the ground effort and who's going to be a part of it. So
Yeah. So I don't know. That's cool. I guess you're taking steps like to prevent that burnout and get some other people in your camp. And yeah, I feel like that's something all musicians kind of need to do. You can
need your team.
Yeah, like you can do things by yourself and do the DIY thing, but eventually everyone needs a little help.
Yeah, you get other people from different influences and genres, and you're able to create something more grand. I myself, I'm a musician and guitarist, but without my bandmates, some of the greatest stuff that I feel like I've ever written, a lot of it also came from inspiration from some of my bandmates too, and with their input as well.
Yeah. Are you like one of the primary writers for your group, or do you guys write as a collective, or what's your process like?
Well, we haven't been together since before COVID. We've been trying to get back together the last couple months, but we haven't been able to get everybody. But our album is almost finished. We just have a few more finishing touches that we need to put on before we'll get it out there. But I would say when it came to our first EP, I was a major writer on that one. I had a little bit of something on every song, but our current album, our bassist really stepped up, and he had a lot of material, and he definitely dominates on the main album. So I definitely would say it just depends on, who's feeling inspired and who's got stuff to bring to the table.
That's cool. Can you remind me the name of your band so I can?
Oh yeah, so I'm a part of a band called Blix 10. It's BLIX10, Blix 10.
Yeah, and I believe, Nick, the song "It Hurts," didn't you write and compose that one for the most part?
Yeah. I wrote all the music and lyrics for that. And
It's a great one to check out.
And then everything else, I had a lot of collaboration from my bandmates.
What was the title of that song?
So Blix 10, BLIX10, the song "It Hurts" from our EP album.
It Hurts. Okay. Okay, perfect. I think
from And So It Begins.
And So It Begins.
Yeah, definitely a good one. I feel like Nick's lyrics on that song are really cool, really deep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're a lyricist too?
Oh yeah. I play guitar, and I wrote all the lyrics for that song too. But yeah, I was just in a very inspired time of my life, and I don't know, it just all came to me, and it was a riff. The beginning riff was something I've had for years, and I just feel like, what, I want to turn this into a song, and I just sat down, and maybe about over the course of a month and a half, that song kind of came to fruition, and my bandmates helped, kind of, spice it up a little bit with vocals and things like that, and other, because I don't play drums or anything like that, so drums and other parts like that, they helped with that as well, and it came to what it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, we touched on lyrics earlier, but I really have a huge respect for people who have a lyrical vision or find a really honest or profound way to communicate with words what it is that you're feeling at the moment, whether it's a topical song or whether it's about how it felt to go through a certain experience, or an observational song on what's going on in the world or whatever. I think that that's really one place where a good band can become a great band.
Yeah.
Not that and I love instrumental music too, and I don't get me wrong, I'm like I said about Michael Jackson earlier, it doesn't necessarily matter so much what you're singing about as long as you sell it. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just have a huge appreciation for good lyricists.
I wouldn't say I'm an amazing lyricist, but every now and then I'll feel inspired, and I'll write it down. And the song that we just told about, "It Hurts," I definitely feel it's one of my most vulnerable lyrics I've ever written. And a part of me was actually kind of apprehensive to make it be part of the song, but like, what, the inspirations I got for this song were from a lot of my favorite artists, and my favorite songs by those artists, and a lot of them are very deep down and personal songs, about difficult things that they've gone through their life, and it's kind of a combination of all those songs and personal experiences that I've gone and part of my spiritual, political, and personal beliefs, all kind of just mixed into one.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I'm stoked to listen to these after we're finished here.
And sorry, Nick, I feel like I've been hogging the show here in the questions, and we do have a few more for you if you have time, JJ. And
I got the time, yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, just let us know if we're running too long. I realize it's been about an hour and a half, but do you want to take it away, Nick? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good, man. But no, I don't have anything of really, but I definitely get what you were talking about earlier, though, where you appreciate people who bring lyrics or music and all that stuff, because sometimes that burnout that we were talking about, I have felt that for the past couple of years during COVID. I think during COVID is where I felt the least inspired I've ever been in my musical experience throughout life, and I've always felt like I've been able to come up with riffs, come up with lyrics, but these last couple of years I feel like I'm experiencing that burnout right now.
Yeah, like the wind gets taken out of your sails unexpectedly, and whatever track you were on, suddenly it takes a huge left turn, and now you're like, okay, now what do I do? Like, there's nothing I can do about my situation. How am I going to react to it? Writing good lyrics, I feel like that was something, I felt like that was kind of one of my greatest weaknesses as a creator. I feel like, and that reflects the way that I create music now, where I do make my music first and then the lyrics come after. But I felt like I had to work really, really, really hard to learn to write lyrics that I could say what I mean and mean what I say. and feel like I was doing it in a way that was understandable and cohesive, rather than it being really long format songs with all these verses and too many metaphors and trying to be smart and opening my thesaurus and all that.
Something
But
genuine and honest.
yeah, I mean, what I was creating was genuine and honest, but I didn't feel like it was the caliber of lyricism that I wanted. It was the same thing with music, and I had to work really, really hard for that. So I think that's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for people who are lyricists, is because I consider that one of, if not the hardest part of the whole process of making a song, from a great piece of music into a great piece of music that some people can connect to verbally. You can move people very powerfully with instrumental music, but when you come forward and add the words and say the words to it, it creates so much less confusion about what a person should be understanding from your work, what message you're really trying to convey. And that's something that I am really proud of regarding Stardust. I really felt like I gave myself permission to go there and write something that was very creative, but also understandable and relatable, even though the whole thing is kind of a metaphor and,
No, yeah,
goes
I
from.
definitely feel that in the song. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed the lyrics on that song, and they really stood out to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, very like vulnerable even. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the idea behind that is a story where you go from being formless to literally being born, and then not having any idea, like, okay, wait, where the hell was I before I was born? I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
And then experiencing through the course of your life the wonders and the terrors of the world, and that we all have to go through in experiencing the human condition. We absorb our experiences and all these things, and they help define who we are. And then the ending chorus is changed the lyrics from "I am human" to "We are human," in an effort to make that connection and say, you know what, in spite of all of this, I think the feeling, all of the good and all the bad, I think the feeling that I'm left with is hopefulness for what we can accomplish as a people, and the things that we set our minds to do, we can do them. Like, we should never underestimate ourselves as far as our capabilities. And there's that little line at the end that says, and I don't doubt for a second that we can save the wreckage. That's kind of on the nose of, like, yeah, our planet's pretty much falling apart and may not be habitable in like 60 years, but I don't think it's too late to turn it around.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
that's
Very
the
hopeful.
story is coming into life, living through it, and then kind of deciding, okay, now what are we going to do now that we're here? Because we're all here, we're all connected.
We're all in
know,
it
we-
together.
We are all in it together, and I really am a very firm believer in that. I'm a believer in genuine connections, finding common ground between yourself and people who are different than you. I'm not always the best at that, because I get social anxiety unless we start talking about music, and then I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. I get you, you get me. Like, this all makes sense, or creatives in general, artists,
I understand that feeling.
and the like. But yeah, so I think I got sidetracked talking about that.
Oh, you're good.
But,
So, Josh, I've been meaning to ask you, are there any upcoming projects that you would like to tell us about? I feel like we focused a lot on the past and the present, but what does the
Yeah.
future bring for you?
Well, my contract with Bolin is really flexible, which I appreciate. I did deliver 2 singles, and I'm signed on to do a 4-track EP, but we've talked about that being sort of, we'll tackle that when we get to it. So I've been cataloging music, working on stuff for the last 6-7 months, and I have a lot of great material that there's some songs that are definitely like, okay, this belongs on an album. You can't release this 7-minute long ballad as a single. It's just not going to fly. So I've got at least a half dozen songs that are like pretty much ready to go into final tracking and have me start ironing out the lyrics for them. But I'll either be releasing a single sometime maybe in August or September, or if things start to go well with the band and I kind of get over this burnout and, you know, find my stride again, I'd really like to see myself releasing at least an EP instead of just a single, if not taking even a little more time to do a full-length album.
Yeah.
I just have learned and grown so much as a songwriter and as a producer, and I would love to have the self-titled definitive JJ Braves album, because I get the opportunity with that to show a lot more of my influences and show more diversity as a songwriter and as a lyricist, and get people used to the idea that for me this is a project that's intended to have infinite creative latitude, is the phrase that I use. I don't know if that makes sense, but like there's no direction that I can't go with this project.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to feel like, hey, I can't write this style of song because it's not consistent with what I've done. And I feel like doing a full-length record would really help me establish, oh wow, he could, you know, follow this song into like a whole new set of songs or an album, you know, or do an album that's like got a bunch of ballads on it, or do an album that's mostly upbeat or whatever. So that's what I'm hoping will happen. At the very least, I'll be releasing a single, you know, before the end of the summer. And just depending on how things go, I'd like it to become more than that, to, you know, turn into an EP or full length. But yeah, that's like I said, I have all this stuff written, and it's just kind of waiting on another little kickstart, creative spark to get these songs done, mixed and mastered, and start putting the record together. It's gonna be so fun to try to figure out, you know, what order these songs should go in, and, you know, if I'm gonna ease people into this song that's a lot more like metal sounding, you know, I don't want to come out of this like really sweet synth ballad. I got to try to find a middle ground to put between that and that. And I'm really looking forward to that process. That's going to be really cool, I think. And then getting to go play shows too. I mean, like, venues are opening up and people are hungry for music. And I'd really like to get out on the road. Honestly, the song I've been working on lately, the hook lyric is "Get me the hell out of Hollywood."
All right, I like it. Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
you know, I don't live in the city, but I've lived near, you know, LA and Hollywood and stuff for a long time, and gotten to see the scene and be a part of it a little bit. But it's really, I'm not built for the Hollywood hustle. I just feel really like it's just not really for me. So I know it's my backyard. I know I'm gonna have to go play there, but what I really am looking forward to, and this is sort of the mid to long term, is being able to get to do some extended tours where I get to go across the country, go into smaller cities where, you know, maybe there's like one main venue that everybody comes out to on Friday night, and be able to come out with a great band with great songs, create an experience instead of just singing a bunch of songs, and really leave people being like, what the hell did I just experience? Like, that was so sick. And then being able to go to like the merch table, whatever, and make these connections with people. I can't wait for that stage of this whole project, because I really do want to connect with people. You know, I want, like, if I meet somebody at a show, I want them to DM me so that we can talk about whatever we want. I can get to know them. I don't know if that comes from kind of my church days of really like getting to know people on a really deep level and talk about, you know, really profound stuff or whatever. But I like knowing people's struggles. I like being able to encourage them both through my music and just in person or in a more personable way. And that helps drive me forward for sure. I don't think that I'd be satisfied at this point with remaining just a studio musician, because there's too many people that I just want to go meet and go provide them an experience, and then get them to get to know them for real. Yeah.
Well, we're definitely excited to see like what comes of all this talent and all this stuff that you're creating. And I don't know, maybe come down to Utah. There's plenty of people that I think would really appreciate your music here. So,
You know, it's funny. Do you know Kilby Court?
yeah. I've actually performed there once.
Oh, have you? Yeah. So we came through there on that tour manage that I did for He Is We. And,
Oh, really?
We did 2 sold out nights in Kilby Court. She has a huge fan base in Salt Lake City. and I don't know why. Like she just does. And that place was so cool. I'll never forget the experience of like how they opened up the garage doors and everybody spills out into the courtyard, and you know, there's that stage
it's a
in the
very
corner,
intimate
but
setting for sure. Yeah.
yeah, it is. But somehow you can still pack like what, 150 people in there, or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that, like shoulder to shoulder, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, dude, I would love to come to play there, play in Utah. You know, I grew up in the Midwest in Minnesota, and so I kind of have a soft spot for all of those Midwestern states,
Yeah.
that I really want to go out and just, yeah, I
So-
just really want to meet more people and connect to people through music. And you know, growing up, felt like I had a really hard time making friends because I was, you know, bipolar, but I didn't know it. Just socially really struggled. And then I think as I grew into a better and better musician, I started feeling like, hey, if I really want to have these connections with people, like this is how I'm going to do it. It's going to be through music. It's going to be through art. And, you know, that's something that I think I latched onto at a really early age, is like, hey, I want to be heard, but I'm not just going to walk into a room and beg for attention. I'm going to try to create something that people are going to legitimately enjoy and be able to see inside me, I guess, or feel what I'm feeling, or have that conversation with me in a way that I feel I can have that conversation more effectively, I guess, or make that connection more deeply than I think I'd be able to do just on a one-on-one conversation with a stranger. I'm not super good at that.
Well, it's funny. I've always found it interesting that it seems like people with bipolar are the most creative people out there. Like, there's so many people with bipolar or other, you know, so-called mental illnesses or whatever, that are just so creative and so many people relate to. Like, it's just very interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, I totally know what you're talking about. I have a friend who is schizophrenic, and he just is, the stuff he comes up with is just unbelievable, the way his brain works. Like, he's traded some of his journals to me on a couple occasions and just gotten to, like, because he just wants to be heard, you know. So he gave me his journals and I got to read through them all, and I was just like, I was blown away, because I have my own, and I do for myself, I have come to terms with it being a mental illness, you know, and I'm that actually helps me get through it. Like, it helps me categorize, okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, for him, it's just like, wow, that's a whole new element of the way that the mind can work and creativity can manifest. But his experience with all of that is very different from mine. My partner, on the other hand, Joey, she is also bipolar, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. I don't think she would. And we get along really, really well. Like, it could have been a total dumpster fire of, you know, between us meeting and just having some kind of explosive bipolar relationship. But, you know, we're both managing it. We're both creatives. She's a musician as well. And, you know, I hear what you're saying. Like, it's, I think,
Well, I just think that there's this stigma of, like, yeah, you know, you hear about people with bipolar and maybe how they are hard to live with, or hard, you know, but there's so many amazing artists out there. Like, even, you know, Kanye West, he can be a little eccentric, but you can't deny that he's made some incredible music.
yeah.
And so I don't know, it's just fascinating to me, and maybe I feel like people with bipolar don't always get people don't talk about the positive aspects as much as they maybe talk about what are some of the negative aspects that sometimes pop up with it.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get
I
into
think,
that. Oh, go ahead.
no, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, no, it's easy to, you know, to fall into that mindset. You know, people with, you know, who struggle with, you know, mental illness, that there's only, you know, negative parts of it, but there's also can be different parts that we can learn and understand about other people. I mean, it's a fairly, you know, unexplored frontier. I mean, mental illness is very, very new, and there's not a lot known about all these different mental illnesses that they're out here today. And I definitely agree with Ryan that, you know, I definitely think there are a lot of artists out there that are influenced by, whether it's bipolar or schizophrenia or some other kind of mental illness, where just music is that outlet that allows them to feel normal, to feel human, that they're not necessarily different from the rest of us. They just, they experience life in a different way than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. I think at the height of like my out of control bipolar experiences, I was making cool stuff, and I felt like I was being very creative. I just felt really like connected to the universe kind of, but it ended up really damaging my relationships and eventually really damaging me mentally, to the point where I got, I realized that, hey, if this stuff continues to happen, it's only going to get worse as I get older. And I have crashed and burned too many times to not address this issue and to try to at least get some treatment and get some help, because ultimately I knew that if I didn't do that, it was going to impede my progress on doing what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life, which is create and perform music. So that ended up being a primary motivator for me to get help. And I'm so thankful that there's help out there, and that our understanding of mental illness has come so far, even in the last 30 years or so. The medications and the doctors who have, dedicated their lives to understanding specific mental illnesses, it's just come a long way. So I'm really thankful to live in an age where treatment is effective, and bipolar is actually very, very treatable. You just have to keep a really close eye on yourself. You have to monitor your moods very closely. It's a daily, full-time thing. But yeah, I mean, being bipolar and being a creative, it's like you kind of hope that in that process of getting treatment or getting help, you don't lose that spark, that creative mania, that you still feel like yourself. And in my experience, I've felt like I feel more like myself now than I ever did before, because I'm not having these episodes that make me feel out of control, or, I self-sabotage a really good thing. It was a very, very real for me for a very long time. And kind of accepting my diagnosis helped me understand why I did the things that I did, why I started so many bands and shut them down, why I had relationships that ultimately became volatile due to, in hindsight, me being really messed up in the head. So I don't know, I would encourage anybody that's listening that there are people who get it, there are people who want to help, and however you decide to pursue your mental health, because people do it in a lot of different ways, just don't give up. Be okay with acknowledging that there's something different about you, something different about the way your brain works, and that's okay. It's not your fault. And, that we can do this together. I wouldn't be where I am without the help of a lot of people. My dad, my doctors, the friends that I've made. But it is very possible to rein that in. I guess that's the phrase I'll use for myself, rein that in, and actually discover how much more you're capable of when you have that stability of mind to be able to take on big projects and not have like a week of manic blowout where you do all this stuff and then you're depressed for like 4 months and don't do anything, that's not something that I can afford to do anymore with my, dreams and my career trajectory. I need to have a way to be involved in my own mental health in a really serious way. Otherwise I could ruin my own chances, and I've just decided that that's not an option for me. So whatever I have to give up as far as partying and like being out, and I don't know if this makes sense, but
no. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I love your message that you're trying to convey to our listeners out there by saying, hey, if you're struggling with this, reach out to people. People want to help you. You do have loved ones who want to understand, even if they can't experience it, the way that you are. There's still ways to manage it and get it under control. And sometimes music can be that outlet that helps you to get it under control. Like one of my favorite artists from listening to my parents' music, both my mom and my dad love Billy Joel, and he struggles with bipolar as well. And one of my favorite songs that he ever wrote was called "I Go to Extremes," which is a song that he wrote after he and his wife got divorced because he had bipolar, and it's all about him, saying, don't know why I go to extremes. I just do. I'm sorry, that this happened, and all that. He's just explaining, his thought process and what he experienced, with what he's going through. So,
I actually pulled up the lyrics here while we're talking about that, but I'm gonna dive into this song after we're done here. That sounds like a really interesting read.
Yeah. It's a very it's a fun tune, but it's a heavy topic.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how like you can take a really heavy subject and then juxtapose it with like really positive or really like music that's full of an energy that makes you want to engage and actually makes the idea of these struggles seem more, I guess, palatable, or like, hey, I can do something with these feelings.
Yeah,
and create something really cool. Like, it's not going to necessarily be like a weepy song about, this is my struggle. You can actually take it and turn it into a banger. And now,
yeah, I mean,
people are go ahead.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's how that song is for me. I heard this song when I was very young. I didn't know what the lyrics meant. I just knew I loved the music and I loved banging out to it. It wasn't until I got a little bit older where I actually listened to the lyrics. It's like, whoa, it's a serious topic. It's basically just a message to his ex-wife saying, I'm sorry and I don't know why I go to extremes.
I think you have a very good and positive way of looking at that whole situation, Josh. And that's the stuff we love to hear on the show, and how it relates to music and how it can help people that way. And so we've got just a couple more questions for you, I think. And one of them is kind of fun. Yeah. Do you have any quirks? And what I mean by that is like certain artists, like I'm a fan of Eminem, and I heard years ago that when he's traveling around, he puts tinfoil around all of the windows in his apartments, supposedly to help with like paparazzi. But you just hear about weird, quirky things that artists do. Do you have anything like that?
Nothing like, I don't have necessarily any like rituals or things that I do, but I do have Tourette's syndrome, so that can be a little bit like quirky sometimes, I guess. That's kind of how it felt when I was younger.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I guess that's kind of one little thing about me. It's not like that bad anymore, but it made me feel quirky, I guess.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that can be challenging and like kind of quirky at times.
Yeah, it really felt like that, but I don't know. Maybe I do have quirks, but I spend so much time by myself in the studio. I don't have anybody to tell me what they are. So,
well, maybe when you get your band members all go, maybe you'll discover them then. Yeah.
They could just tell me how weird I am, and then I'll just say, okay, I get it. Yeah.
And then
that's an interesting question. Now you can have me thinking about that. Monitoring myself, like, was that weird?
Oh no.
I've always kind of liked that one. It's just kind of a fun one. But and then I guess we'll kind of get to maybe some of the last ones here, heavy hitters. I know you've kind of already maybe explained this a little bit, but what do you hope to accomplish with your music now, later,
Well, the first two things that come to mind, like we did talk about earlier, is I really want to make connections with people. I feel like that's maybe the most valuable thing for me as far as being an artist and being a musician and a lyricist and all these things, is that it can be hard to make connections with people who feel misunderstood, and I know that music is a way to break that barrier really effectively. So I want to go meet and be with these people who are like me, they're my tribe, and then I want people to feel like they're part of a tribe as well. We're out here doing life together.
Yeah, getting through it together.
But yeah, and then the other thing, honestly, is for me. My mental health is very reflected by the content that I'm creating, or whether or not I'm creating. Because if I'm not in that creative space, I feel like I lose a lot of myself and don't really know what to do, or I start to get resentful about things that I don't need to because I don't have that outlet. So it's really important for me to enjoy the process and have that catharsis of getting to sit down and create a piece of music from a blank audio session.
Well,
I think those are probably the two most important things to me, is what I get out of it and then what that can do for others.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I feel like that's what a lot of people want out of listening to music, is to feel that catharsis with, share it with the artist. And yeah, man, I think that's super cool. And let's see. Oh yeah, I guess I just wanted to give you one last opportunity. If there's anyone you wanted to talk about, shout out, or kind of plug, I just figured I'd, if there's anyone that just kind of give you the mic and, tell people where they can find you if you want, or, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think I've probably mentioned the people that I would plug the most. Bolin Records, obviously, I would follow closely. I think it's Bolin Records Official on Instagram. Okay, so they're just Bolin Records, Boleyn Records on Instagram. And I would highly recommend that you follow them, interact with the posts. They're an up-and-coming label. They're signing more artists. And I just, like you mentioned earlier, the people that are involved with this label are just genuinely great people, so you can expect to have a really positive experience interacting with them, if you're willing to go give them a follow or send a private message or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I want to definitely plug Black and Gold Studios. You can find them on Instagram. It's Black N Gold, the letter N, blackngold.studio on Instagram. That's where I've done my vocal sessions there. It's where I'll be doing drum recording most likely, and then rehearsing my band. So Black and Gold has played a humongous part in me getting where I am. Has provided me with some incredible studio experiences and given me a great creative space. It's super, super dope there. So if you're in LA or you need a studio to go to, I highly recommend checking out Black and Gold. Again, and just run by really, really fantastic people as well. We've all cultivated a really positive atmosphere there of wanting to be artist-centered and really just about helping people achieve their vision. There's people who do podcasts out of there. They come record. There's a photo studio there as well. We have a friend who's a really great photographer, cinematographer, videographer that runs his business out of there, or some of his business rather. And then I guess the last person that I would really want to plug is my vocal producer and mixed engineer, Adam, and you can find him on Instagram at Animal on Rampage.
Just follow Black and Gold Studio. And sorry, what was this guy's name? Animal?
His name is Adam, and his handle is Animal on Rampage.
Rampage.
Yeah, he's a sick drummer too, but he's I did Jawbreaker and Stardust with him, so he did the mix and master and recorded the vocals for me on both of those songs, and he's done such a fantastic job that, again, anybody in LA that is looking for somebody to help give 100% at an affordable rate, definitely hit up Adam, Animal on Rampage, send him a message. I know he would really appreciate the business. And I guess I'll plug Joey as well. She's on Instagram at I am Joey Cook. She just signed to Bolin, and I've been helping her with her music over the last couple years, just helping produce songs that were kind of piano songs to her, or littler, kind of more intimate. I shouldn't use the word littler. They were more intimate. They were just like piano or just one guitar, and then we took that and we added drums and we added electric guitars and we made them big, and it's been so fun to be a part of her journey and her process. And now that she's going to be releasing this new single with a music video with Bolin, I am super, super stoked for her and for them to be working together, because I think she's just going to go really far. She's very experienced in the industry and has an amazing vision for what she wants to do with her music. So highly recommend following her as well, because she's about to drop some bombs. So
All right.
Just followed her as well, and yeah, Kai was telling me about her. She sounds amazing.
She really is. She's a great person too.
Yeah. So we were actually discussing maybe getting her on the show down the road at some point. I don't know if what will come of that, but anyway, Josh, again, many sincere thanks to you, to Kai, to all the other people involved with making this happen today, to Nick and Joe here with me, and yeah, Joe, is it possible? Could we give Josh an applause?
Do you have a soundboard?
Right on. So,
you guys are awesome.
But before we go, sorry, unless if there's anything else I wanted to just let you know if you would like to share some lyrics before we go today. I don't know if you have any. I don't want to put you on the spot too much.
No, I mean, I went through some of the lyrics of Stardust. I'm really proud of those, but I mean, the one that I got right now is "Get Me the Hell Out of Hollywood." It really reflects my current. I did a tour managing gig last month and got to go to Seattle and Portland, and it just set that fire in my belly again of like, wow, I really want to go to these other places. I don't want to get involved in the Hollywood grind where you're just trying to get noticed and there's so many people here trying to make it. Like, I want to go out. I want to get in my car and go on the road. So that's sort of the attitude and motivation behind that song. And I think it reflects kind of where I'm at right now and where I hope to be in the near future.
All right.
Love it. Josh, JJ Braves, Get Me the Hell Out of Hollywood. It's been fantastic talking with you, man, and appreciate it so much.
Likewise.
And, yeah, thanks for taking our call today. So,
thanks for 2 hours of your time, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We appreciate your time too.
It's really good talking to you.
All right, take care, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.